I thought another one we could go with, because this is an interesting one. We're going to make this one, it won't just even be LCS specific, because this is an abstract concept we can talk about. This is interesting, because I feel like every league in the world should be saying this, but LCK is the first one to say it. Everyone except the LPL, in my opinion, has the problem I'm about to describe. The LCK says, there's a sentiment from people within their league that they don't have enough, air quotes, smart players in the current era of mechanics, as they say, air quotes, and that they've started literally looking for retired veterans to potentially come back, crumbs. Now, the reason I bring this up is, this will sound very shocking, because obviously it's like LCK isn't in the best sport, and like, wow, is that it? They're having to go back and get like all people. But as I say, for me, almost everyone except LPL, this is a problem I see in all the regions, mate, is that everyone's gone heavy on rookies, and they've forgotten what skills like veterans bring, and instead we just got all these teams full of rookie talents, and you don't know which are going to fail at Worlds, which are going to be good in the playoffs, which are going to be good in a week from now. You just know that they were good a month ago when they were in the ERL, or a year ago when they were somewhere else, or they were hot this month. Basically, everything's flavour of the month. So, do you want to start us off, Crumbs? What do you think of this as either an abstract point or LCK specific? Up to you.
I mean, the first thing, I'll go with the abstract. I don't think it's LCK specific for me. The fact that a player like Xmithie, despite the work ethic complaints, had not even academy offers, it isn't even on any team. I mean, this guy has won more than any other jungler in NA, right? He actually was able to perform even internationally. Yes. There should have been a lot of interest in getting Xmithie, whether he wanted to or not. I know he's still lingering around with people from the scene, so I think that it was surprising, and I actually think that this is a problem that is not confined to just the player base. I think it's actually confined to the entire space, in that you're running out of talent for coaches as well. You're running out of talent for managers. You're running out of talent for pretty much all the aspects that you require some pretty important first-hand experience from playing or being around League. And I think it applies to every aspect of League, because right now the coaches just continue to get recycled. Right? The players are just gotta find somebody new, and then these players don't have the leadership qualities. They're 18 years old, they're 17 years old. Where are the guys that are in their mid to late 20s that are able to bring up all these other young players? Core JJ is about to be 30, right? Afram was about to be 30. There's a reason why these players are better at bringing up young talent than if you pair them up with a new support. So I think this is just an oversight from leagues in general, that they have not valued having old voices, that they just thought that old voices would have nothing to offer if maybe their mechanics were not there. Right? If you didn't have the mechanics, you had no other qualities that were redeemable in League. If you weren't able to express the way you needed somebody to play, or how you wanted them to view the game well, and you didn't have the mechanics, and you had no value whatsoever, that there was no intangibles when it came to leadership. And I think that was an oversight that is slowly creeping up. I think that right now a lot of teams are going to be taking a hard look at their staff. They're going to start realizing that a lot of their problems weren't entirely on the players, and a lot of it was on their staff. And that they are going to have to find staff that can understand the players, that knows what it means to be a pro, that knows the needs of an organization. And then they're going to realize that, the best I can do is hire some dude that watched collegiate esports for a year, for 1 year, and that's all he's done. And that's really going to hurt. I think it's really going to end up hurting the scene. And if the LCK was the first one to come out and say it, I think that's already the problem, because I thought NA would be the first one to realize this.
What do you think, Oddball?
Yeah, the way that I think about it, I think that it depends on the region that you're talking about, because I think that while it is something similar in both Korea and North America, as well as Europe, it is more of the fact that it's the same problem, but I think that the cause of the problem is different in some respects. When you look at like North America and LEC, when I talked with I actually talked a little bit with Amazing about this subject. Something that he said was just that when you have players that do have leadership qualities, obviously there are some examples like Aframu who are just like the sweetest people that are also able to exhibit those qualities, but there are people that are like Alfari and Amazing that could in some cases be considered conflicting with team managements and with team staffs. So I think that that's one of the reasons that you see that in the Western League of Legends is just based off of franchising and just based off the business model, that those type of people are not necessarily the most agreeable and the type of figures that teams want to have, but that they need to have.
Yep.
And when you look at Korea, I would say that for the most part, I think it's just a matter of players getting burnt out. The fact that like there are cases where they are just like completely destroyed after a few years, and you don't really have that many experienced players, able to continue playing. That's the way I see it, at least.
I mean, they don't know how to value these people, though. I think what you said is right. You need those old players, but then someone's getting butthurt because the person that you need keeps telling you that you're shit and that you don't know what you're talking about and that you need to stay away from talking to the players about League because you keep putting bad ideas in their head. And then, oh, no, you can't have this guy. He's toxic. He's telling me all these negative things. It's like, well, nobody else can do this job right now, right? Nobody else can talk to these players in the way that they need to. And so I think that there is a big problem in not recognizing that sometimes the value that the player or the person is offering to the organization is just much higher than what anybody else can bring to the table. And you're just going to have to deal with that. And honestly, it's not that hard. Right, just stay away. Just stay out of the guy's way and give him the leash and be like, okay, you think you can run this team? You've been a player for a long time. It's clear that a lot of the people that are running some of the best orgs have a lot of experience as a player before, or in some intertwined capacity within professional esports. And until these people get fostered, it's going to be the same result that happens with the large developers, that instead of hiring the people that were really passionate about the game in the first place, you hired somebody that came off of a degree or some other position that sees this position as a way to further the resume or as a way to make some money in a cool industry to advance their career, and is not going to give a shit, is going to have 1 to 3 years making 6 figures plus, and then will just bounce and never be heard of again. So you need to keep hiring the people that have already devoted their lives to it, because they will continue to do so.
Yeah, one of the problems I have with this topic is basically it sounds like you're telling coaches and orgs one thing for 5 years and then you go, whoa, don't do what I just said. So people are going to think, but you always advocate for coaches to have more control, for example, and more agency over what they can run in the team. Yeah, but the problem I have is this. Most of the people who are coaches are so inexperienced at that job, because at most they could only have done it for about 4 or 5 years if they're lucky, that they themselves aren't actually good enough at coaching to warrant full control of a team. Now, I want them to have more control. Like, it's ridiculous, some of the stories I've heard over the years of people who basically only got to sort of half do the draft, but they got the blame for everything else in the team. They didn't recruit the players, they didn't choose which player got to stay, sometimes they were overruled over who they put in the game, and then the player on top of that's fucking up their draft, telling them I can't play the champion I was playing all week, or I don't want to play against this of this opponent's one pick, you know. So even though I want them to have more agency, the issue I have is this. I feel like some teams and orgs have skipped over the period of giving them no agency and given them all the agency, and the victim are these exact players. Because here's the dark truth if you're a team org owner. The players win the games, not the coaches. There's no coach in the entire West is so genius, he's making his team like 50% better just by coaching them. They, at the moment, if they do an amazing job at adding the last 10%, that's what they're doing as a coach, right? So my problem is this. The person who really makes your macro amazing is someone like Xmithie or Perks or fucking insert other names of people who've done these jobs. Matter, Swordart, if he isn't in TSM in 2021. These are the players who are doing that for you. It isn't your coach. Your coach, this is the problem. The coach doesn't understand. Yes, for the rookie and for the player who's just a player, maybe he should have full agency. But if you have someone like a Xmithie or an Amazing in your team and you don't want to listen to them, you have fucking failed your job, mate. You are stupid as fuck. That would be like being a basketball coach and then you have like fucking Chris Paul, fucking Steve Nash as your point guard, and you're like, oh, you won't making any pass decisions, so you're just going to run in my system, and I'm going to call all the players from the side of the court. You wouldn't do that, because why have you got that player in that case? And those are even good examples, by the way, because everyone knows point guard doesn't have to be that good individually at the end of his career. He just has to know the game. He has to know how to help other people be better. So most of the people we're talking about, these names, are people who not only are smart as fuck about the game from a player position, by the way, that instantly gets buy-in from your teammates that a coach doesn't get, but more importantly, most of them are captain figures as well. Like, here's what I think the LCK is also learning. They're learning, just like the LEC is over in Europe, where they have all those ERL rookies, is that you want a couple of rookies. Like, for example, maybe if my mid laner is like some stud fucking assassin player, yeah, maybe I want him as a rookie. I don't want my jungle and support to both be rookies who never played at the pro level, have zero international experience, and might be working with players that are more senior than. What are the odds they're going to be amazing shot callers, amazing captain figures? Because I think a lot of the aspects about the game, like, that go missing are just people who do things that don't show up on the scoreboard. I'll give you an obvious example. Dude, I've seen this in fucking Cloud9. Are you ready? I'm going to be the one person who's going to make an angle whereby Perks has been inarguably a positive to Cloud9. I'll give you an example, right? When Cloud9 won those games against the international teams, did they win those by smashing the game and just being better and all? Did they? Fuck. What they actually have in Cloud9 now that I don't think any NA teams had ever, I think, is they actually have someone who understands quick macro decision making. And you see it. Think of the game everyone remembers watching on this last weekend. TSM versus Cloud9, a massive fiesta, right? In that game, every time TSM makes a good move, Cloud9 instantly on the other side of that make a play. They go for a tower dive. They go for like a group up and do something else. They're taking the Herald, right? We better take the Dragon now. Like, they instantly respond. That is a classic hallmark of all Perks teams, by the way. And then here's the other one. Y'all are all going to laugh and go, yeah, what about that stupid TP? That TP made perfect fucking sense. What are you talking about? If that inhibitor doesn't respawn and they don't just dive after the fucking TP, that's a genius move that has no downside. You either end the game instantly, which is what they went for. I love decision making like that, where you're just willing to go for it. And if they don't, all they had to do was back out and not die, and they still were fine. It's just back to like almost like a slightly even game with them ahead, if anything. So, in my opinion, like, you can see the impact he's having. He might be not very good individually right now, but that is impact that is impacting the game beyond just a mid laner, isn't it? Like, there's plenty of mid laners might have played better, but they wouldn't make any of those calls, and they all just happen to follow him in every team he's in. They make these clutch mid-game macro decisions. Do they? Fuck, that comes from the guy who's doing that. Oh, and who's one of his coaches? Oh, it's also Xmithie, who's another fucking wizard at the game who knows all this shit. So I'm not surprised that the regions, by the way, that have all the players, think about it, Korea and China, the reason they're going to come to this conclusion is because they have 1 billion raw mechanical talent, so it can't just be that the player isn't good enough. I'll even say, by the way, this is why the sword art move kills me in LCS, because I actually think Sword Art did this in LPL. He took his team to like a top placing in the LPL and then went to the final of Worlds. The problem is this, he's not a super English speaker, is he? So he's not going to be as good in English. So in my opinion, the main reason to hire him was that aspect, but you can't make use of it in the same way. If he's speaking fucking Mandarin, I'm sure he's amazing. I bet it's incredible the download he can give his teammates. So I'm amazed more regions haven't started to pick up on this. I predict, Crumbs, in the next few years, you will start to see, the obvious examples like Nuke Duck on Excel, you'll start to see some of the GMs make these sort of shrewd like reclamations of players that we thought were done, but they're going to come back and be like, you know, LEC quality. They might not be the best, but they'll be quality, you know. And the idea is, what you'll eventually do, in my opinion, is the analogy. It'll be like academy in LCS. You don't want it to be all rookies, and you're stupid if it's all washed Season 2 players. You want it to be a mix, so that the veterans help develop the rookies and establish the basic playing style that they can then understand sort of what LCS is like. And then when they go to LCS, it's not the brand new scenario where they're just walking into a totally new game. They sort of played like, you know, something half like the LCS, if you get my point. Anyone having thoughts off this?
It doesn't surprise me. I think that a lot of players didn't stop playing because they wanted to. I think they stopped playing because the opportunities that the orgs were after it felt like they didn't align with what the players wanted. Like,
yes.
I think a
this
player
is basically why
that
Featherman just retired, by the way. Featherman just retired for the same reason.
Right.
He said he knew he wasn't going to get back into LEC, so what was the point, basically?
Yeah, like you've got Featherman, you've got a player like Freeze. I didn't think Freeze I think was looking for playing. Right, he's now coaching. So I think there's a lot of players that are in this position. I think even. I mean, who knows? Like this might be too far, but maybe Golden Glue, if you gave him more years, could have actually kept playing in amateur and academy and then made it to pro. Like Who knows? Like, right, we still don't know what the actual span of a league career looks like. So I think that a lot of players did go out early because I tell you, had I received an offer to any league after Renegades got banned, I would have kept playing. I would have not stopped. I stopped because there were no more offers.
I'll give you the most egregious one. It's only now allowed to be made public because enough people have made it public, like who were legit, not me, just as brand safe. Basically, Xmithie didn't choose to retire. He didn't choose to become the coach of Fnatic. What happened was, when everyone else in the OG team wanted to re-up and just do it again, they only offered him from the org the minimum possible salary, essentially. And he was just like, fuck this noise, I'm out. So he just left. And so he was essentially forced into retirement because the team he wanted to play for just wouldn't give him a good deal. And that guy was one of the smartest players. No joke, as in like, no one gets better rave reviews from their former teammates than people like him. Like, he gets like the 10 out of 10 work review. Like, the guy is a genius and taught me everything about the game. That's like a bunch of people who've played with him. So the idea an org looks at that and goes, I think you're worth about the minimum possible salary. Like, this game over there, isn't it? Like, these people are in a different world than us.
It's really sad. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Unless a player, I think, is like just like one of the tops in their position, it seems like for the most part there is just like a high devaluing of just knowledge because organizations will just look at a rookie player and just say, oh, this person could be the best player in the league in a year or two. Like there's a chance. With a smart player, you can't really like an experienced player, you can't really say that as much. You know for the most part what you get, but they just so highly undervalue what they bring, like in terms of intangibles. It's really sad to see, I would say.
That's what I think is not true, though. I do think that a player can actually get better over time. I think that a player, even as they age, can legitimately improve their mechanics. I think that using softwares that actually are improving softwares, things for mechanics, can actually pair well with better review, better decision making, and better decision making should put you in positions where you need to rely on your mechanics less, so you end up looking better. And I mean, even players like Core and Afro, some of the oldest in the world, have some of the best mechanics of support still, right? So I don't think that there is such a strong argument for mechanics immediately hurting, at least in the support role. I think that a lot of these players can also fall back into roles that require less mechanics, like support, like jungle sometimes. So I think there is an avenue for you to role swap into these roles. And I think Riot could actually promote the longevity of the game by creating more champions around these roles that are less mechanically demanding, while the other carry roles are much more. It kind of is like that already, but if you did it a little bit more, I think it would help the longevity of the game.
Like, my analogy I would give basically is like a very famous thing I've heard about the chess world, which is that the gimmick in chess is you just obsessively study all the new openings, because obviously if you get some gimmick opening no one knows, you get a header piece or a position and it feels like it's like starting the game in League like 2-0 up in there, like, oh fuck, this is what I've been waiting for, now I'm going to carry the game. But the problem is this, just as you can imagine that scenario, it doesn't really matter if you get ahead of me if you don't understand how the end game of chess works, that you aren't going to win the game, you're going to be lost when you get to the most important part of the game. So my analogy would be picking up a player who's never really played much professional league. He just happens to be amazing today on like Akali as a mid laner. That's like being the guy obsessing over the opening. What you're saying is, oh, he's going to do straight fire in fucking in lane. It's like, yeah, and what about when you have to like group, where you have to rotate? What about if he has to split push and make the perfect decision on when to pull off or when to continue going and apply pressure? Like, he's basically going to have, he's going to score very highly on like the gimmick aspect I just said there. He's going to score very low on the other areas. And so the problem is, think about the way League works. There's certain roles you do have to be among the best. If you want to be in Team Liquid and you want to be a top laner, for example, you better be really fucking good at the game. Like, they're not going to take someone who's bad but just has some game knowledge. But as we all know, Xmithie's the best example ever, Crumbs, because if people don't know, he was phoning it in some of the years where he was winning the LCS. But I tell you what, that guy's understanding, if I pause the game, and I use the same analogy, if I pause the game 33 minutes in and I said to Xmithie, what do you think is going to happen and what do you do? He is a chess master in this equivalent. Like, he understands, he's played 1 billion games. So I don't care that the other jungler has crazy mechanics. Like, I'll put my money on Xmithie in that scenario, and the value he would bring to the team, I mean, you just go look at the fucking results. Like the eye test tells you everything. How many of his teams were incredible late game teams? How many of his teams know how to play around objectives in a tight game? Give me a break. Like this guy, it's like I always say it, so it's overvalued, but the guy has actually forgotten more about League than most of the rookies will ever know. Like that's the disparity we're talking about here. And the fact, by the way, that careers are so short mean that actually if you're like a 5 or 6 year veteran, you are incredibly experienced. There's a reason why in pro sports, it's not just for veterans minimum. They always keep a couple of super old veterans. Usually they should have already retired, but the reason you keep them there is for the culture. You don't want the young guy to come in and not have any idea how to practice, how to play. You even want a guy, by the way, sometimes the most underrated value of the veterans in sports is they were just around another great player themselves 20 years ago, and they can tell you, here's what he was like in practice.
Give me Xmithie as a fucking assistant manager. Just have him chilling. Just have him sitting in the back. I don't know, just filing papers, doing some mindless work that is barely costing his time. That's still going to improve morale because the team culture is thinking like, damn, we got winners here, right? We got the people, like even the guy whose job isn't directly related to my success in the team, they're still getting us the best players that we had. Like if you're surrounded by all these talented players, you're going to perform better. And that is other times the value of players like Perks and even Sven when they drop to Academy, right? It's like, what is he bringing to the table that's different? It's like, well, not very different from the other players that we had, but holy shit, has it motivated everybody to try it? Has it motivated everyone to play their best and show off to these players that they know are legendary?
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.